I'm Evelyn, and if you told me a few years ago that my life would turn into a storm of betrayal and redemption, I'd have laughed it off while pouring you a cup of coffee in my cozy Ohio kitchen. Back then, life felt like a warm quilt, stitched together with love, hard work, and the chaos of raising two boys who couldn't be more different. My husband and I, both in healthcare, me a nurse practitioner, him a pediatrician, built a life in a suburban neighborhood just outside Columbus. Our home, a two-story brick house with a sprawling backyard, was always buzzing with laughter, arguments, and the smell of my homemade chili simmering on the stove. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Years of long shifts and skipped vacations let us invest in a couple of rental properties downtown, small apartments that brought in extra cash to secure our future. Our sons, Caleb and Owen, were the heart of it all. Caleb, the older one, was always chasing something bigger, his eyes gleaming with dreams of fancy cars and corner offices. Even as a kid, he'd negotiate extra allowance like he was closing a business deal. Owen, though, was quieter, content carving little wooden figurines in the garage, his hands steady and his heart loyal. They were like fire and water, but together, they made our family whole. Everything changed one evening when my husband came home, his face pale as the winter sky. He set his medical bag by the door, the same way he always did, but his shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen. "Evelyn, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy, like he was carrying a secret too big for words. My stomach twisted as he sat me down at our kitchen table, the one where we'd shared countless dinners and dreams. I got some test results back. "It's cancer." That word hit like a punch, stealing the air from the room. I wanted to argue, to pull out my medical books and prove the tests wrong, but the look in his eyes told me this was real. The months that followed were a blur of hospital rooms, beeping monitors, and endless cups of bad coffee from waiting room machines. My husband fought hard, his humor flickering even when his strength didn't. But the cancer was a thief, stealing him piece by piece. As a nurse, I'd seen patients face this battle, but nothing prepared me for watching the man I loved, the one who danced with me in our living room to old jazz records, fade away. One quiet night, as we sat together, the TV muted in the background, he took my hand. His grip was weak, but his words were firm. "Evelyn, if I don't make it, you got to keep things together for the boys. The will's set. You'll be okay, financially. Promise me you'll take care of yourself, too." He was gone not long after. The funeral was a haze of black dresses, sympathetic hugs, and colleagues sharing stories of his kindness. But when everyone left, the silence in our house was deafening. His coat still hung by the door, his coffee mug sat unwashed in the sink, and every corner held a memory that cut like a knife. I'd walk past his office, expecting to hear him humming, only to remember he was gone. Grief wrapped around me like a heavy fog, and I wondered how I'd ever find my way out. A few days later, I was in the kitchen, staring at a fridge full of casseroles from well-meaning neighbors, when Caleb stormed in, his face tight with anger. Owen trailed behind, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's will," Caleb said, cutting straight to the chase, his voice sharp like he'd been rehearsing. I set down the dish I was holding, my heart sinking. I'd barely had time to breathe, and here was my son, demanding answers about money. "Your father left everything to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He wanted me to manage things, make sure we're all taken care of." Caleb's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "What about me and Owen? We're his sons. It's not fair we get nothing." Owen stepped in, his voice softer. "Caleb, let's not do this now. Mom's still grieving." But Caleb wasn't backing down. "You're not thinking about the future, Owen." "I am." I leaned against the counter, feeling their stares like weights on my chest. My husband and I had poured everything into this family, and now it felt like it was unraveling. I took a deep breath, pushing back the ache in my heart. "I understand you're upset, Caleb. Your father trusted me to do what's right. Let's figure this out together, okay?" The kitchen felt smaller as Caleb crossed his arms, his frustration filling the air. "So what, Mom? We just wait until you decide we're worthy of our share?" His tone stung, like I was some stranger, not the woman who'd bandaged his scraped knees and cheered at his soccer games. I rubbed my temples, exhaustion creeping in. Caleb, watch how you talk to me. I'm still your mother. Owen stepped between us, hands raised like he was breaking up a fight. Both of you, please. This isn't helping. His calm voice was a lifeline, but the tension hung heavy. Okay, I said, forcing myself to stay steady. Here's what I'm thinking. The rental properties downtown, your father and I worked hard for those. You and Owen can each take one. Live in it, rent it out, whatever you choose. Plus, $350,000 each from the savings to help you build your lives. Caleb's eyes flicked, calculating, but he wasn't satisfied. And the house? The rest of the money. I held his gaze. That stays with me for now. When I'm gone, it'll come to you, as your father wanted. Caleb opened his mouth to argue, but Owen nudged him. It's a fair start, Caleb. Let's think it over. Reluctantly, Caleb nodded, but his tight jaw told me this wasn't over. As they left, I heard Owen whisper, "Give her a break, man." Caleb muttered something I couldn't catch, and I didn't want to. Washing dishes that night, I stared out the window, wondering what my husband would think of us now. The grief was still raw, but this new rift with Caleb cut deeper than I expected. I hoped I was doing right by him and Owen, but doubt not at me. Time, I thought, would show me the way, but time has a way of throwing curveballs. One sunny afternoon, Caleb showed up with Ruth, his new girlfriend. I'd heard bits about her, an influencer with a big following, but nothing prepared me for meeting her. They walked into my living room, and Ruth's presence hit like a spotlight. She was all designer clothes and perfect makeup, her eyes scanning my home like she was appraising it. "Nice place," she said, tossing her hair as she sat on my couch without asking. Caleb hovered beside her, grinning like a kid showing off a shiny new toy. It wasn't like him. He was usually all business, not this lovesick puppy. "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Tea?" Ruth barely looked at me. "Coffee, black, no sugar." Caleb jumped to grab it, leaving me alone with her. The silence was thick, her confidence making me feel like a guest in my own house. She broke the quiet, her tone casual but pointed. "Caleb says you're pretty well off. My family's the same, used to a certain lifestyle, you know." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "That's nice," I said, keeping it neutral. When Caleb returned with her coffee, she took a sip and wrinkled her nose. "It's okay, I guess." Then she leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "We're planning the wedding. I found this perfect lakeside venue in Michigan for the rehearsal dinner, but it's $60,000. A bit steep, but worth it." I nearly choked on my own coffee. 60 grand for a dinner? My heart raced, but I kept my voice calm. "That's a lot, Ruth. We need to be practical." Her face tightened, like I'd insulted her. "Practical? Caleb says you can afford it. I don't do compromise." Caleb chimed in, his voice pleading. "Mom, it's important to Ruth. We want to start our life right." I set my cup down, a storm brewing inside. "I want you to have a beautiful wedding, but $60,000 for one night? That's more than most people spend on the whole thing." Ruth stood, her chair scraping the floor. "I told Caleb I expect a certain standard, Evelyn. If you can't handle that, maybe we need to rethink things." She stormed out, Caleb trailing after her, mumbling apologies. I sat there, stunned, the nerve of her words burning in my chest. My coffee grew cold as I realized this was just the beginning. A few days later, I was unloading groceries when Caleb and Ruth dropped by again. The air felt heavy the moment they walked in, Owen already there, trying to keep things light with small talk. Ruth, dressed like she was heading to a photo shoot, handed me a piece of paper as I set down my bags. "Evelyn, we've thought about the wedding gifts. This should be manageable for you," she said, her smile tight. I glanced at the list: kitchen appliances, nice dinnerware, a few furniture pieces. It was surprisingly reasonable, and for a moment, I felt relief. "This looks doable," I said, nodding. "Good choices." Caleb's eyes lit up with hope, but before I could say more, Ruth's face changed. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. She snatched the paper back, digging in her purse for another. The new list was a slap in the face. A condo, a luxury SUV, a Caribbean cruise, diamond earrings. My jaw dropped. Is this a joke? I asked, my voice shaking. Ruth didn't blink. No joke, Evelyn. This is what we expect for our wedding. I looked at Caleb, waiting for him to say something, anything, to show he saw how absurd this was. But he just stood there, caught between us, silent. Anger bubbled up, hot and sharp. Caleb, why are you letting her push this? You know this is ridiculous. Ruth cut in, her voice rising. This isn't your business, Evelyn. Just pay up and stay out of it. Owen stood, his face hard. That's enough, Ruth. You don't talk to my mom like that in her own house. You're out of line. Both of you need to leave. The room crackled with tension as they grabbed their things, Ruth muttering furiously. The door slammed behind them, and I sank into a chair, my heart pounding. Owen sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders. We'll figure this out, Mom. You don't have to give in to this. He was right, but the sting of Caleb's silence lingered. How had my son, the one I'd raised to value family, let this woman turn him against me? The weeks that followed were a barrage of phone calls from Caleb, each more desperate than the last. Mom, you don't get it, he'd say, his voice tight. Ruth's family has money. I can't look like a failure next to them. You've got the cash, why won't you help? I sat at my kitchen table, phone pressed to my ear, a knot in my stomach. Caleb, it's not about the money. It's about living within reason. Ruth's demands will bankrupt you. He scoffed, frustration spilling over. What do you know? I'm not living like some nobody. I need more of the inheritance now. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I've offered to cover half the wedding, up to $150,000 and an $8,000 gift. That's generous, Caleb, but it comes with boundaries. No surprises. He laughed, bitter and sharp. That's nothing. You're just selfish. His words cut deep, and before I could respond, he hung up. The silence that followed was heavy, my mind racing with worry. How had it come to this? Months passed with no word from Caleb, and I tried to fill the void with routine, morning walks, volunteering at the clinic, but the ache remained. Then, one afternoon, my sister-in-law Kimberly called, her voice hesitant. Evelyn, I heard something you should know. Caleb's flying all the wedding guests to a fancy venue in Michigan. He sold his rental property to pay for it and expects you to cover your own way. He said you refused to help. Anger and sadness swirled inside me. How could he be so reckless? Before I could process it, Owen walked in, his face grim. Mom, you need to hear this. He handed me a recorder, and my hands trembled as I pressed play. Ruth's voice filled the kitchen, cold and calculated. Your mom's just a stubborn old lady sitting on a pile of money. We need to get as much as we can and then cut her off. Caleb's voice followed, chilling me to the bone. Whatever it takes, Ruth. I'm done letting her control us. If I have to, I'll make sure she's out of the picture. I stopped the recording, my heart racing, the betrayal slicing through me. My own son, willing to throw me away for money. Owen's hand on my shoulder steadied me. We're going to that wedding, Mom, he said, his voice firm. They need to face this. Flying to Michigan wasn't a decision I made lightly. My stomach churned the entire plane ride, Owen beside me, his jaw tight but his presence a quiet anchor. The lakeside venue was breathtaking, twinkling lights draped over sprawling gardens, flowers in every corner, and music floating across the water like something out of a dream. But the beauty felt hollow, knowing what awaited us. As we walked into the crowd, I spotted Caleb and Ruth, all smiles, playing the perfect couple. My heart ached for the boy I'd raised, now lost in this glittering charade. Before I could take another step, Ruth saw us. Her smile vanished, replaced by a scowl as she stormed over, her heels clicking like gunfire on the stone path. You shouldn't be here, she hissed, stopping so close I could smell her perfume. This is my day, and you're not welcome. Her voice was loud, drawing curious glances from guests. I froze, the weight of her words hitting like a slap. Before I could respond, Ruth's parents approached, having overheard. Her father, a tall man with a stern face, spoke sharply. "Ruth, that's no way to treat a guest, especially Caleb's mother." Ruth's cheeks flushed, but she didn't back down. Her mother, looking mortified, turned to me. "Evelyn, please come sit with us." They led us to a table at the edge of the setup, clearly an afterthought with mismatched chairs and no place settings. I sat, my hands shaking, trying to hold onto my dignity. The ceremony began, filled with flowery speeches that rang empty, given the tension. Then, unexpectedly, someone handed me a microphone. My legs wobbled as I stood, but something inside me snapped into focus. This was my moment to reclaim my voice. "I came here to wish my son and his bride a happy future," I began, my voice steady despite the nerves twisting my gut. "But I believe in honesty, something that's been missing lately." Ruth's face tightened, her eyes boring into me. I took a deep breath. I've been asked for money over and over, amounts no one could justify. When I couldn't meet those demands, I was threatened with being cut off from my family, my future grandchildren. My voice wavered, but Owen's hand on my shoulder gave me strength. I pressed play on the recorder. Ruth's voice echoed through the speakers, cold and venomous. "Your mom's just a stubborn old lady sitting on a pile of money. We need to get as much as we can and then cut her off." Caleb's voice followed, chillingly calm. "Whatever it takes, Ruth. I'm done letting her control us." Gasps rippled through the crowd, faces turning to Caleb and Ruth. I switched off the recorder, the silence deafening. "I gave my son a property and $350,000. I continued, my voice firm. But it was never enough. Today, I'm done being treated like a bank. I'm disinheriting Caleb and Ruth. I wish them well, but I'm choosing myself." Ruth screamed, her voice piercing. "You've ruined my wedding. I'll never forgive you." Guests murmured, some shaking their heads, others whispering in shock. Caleb stood frozen, his face pale, saying nothing. Ruth's parents ushered her away, their faces red with embarrassment. Owen squeezed my hand, his eyes proud but sad. As we left the venue, the weight of my decision settled over me, painful but necessary. I'd lost a son, but I'd found my strength. Coming home from Michigan was like stepping out of a storm into quiet sunlight. The house felt different, not empty, but ready for something new. I made a choice that surprised even me. I quit my nursing job. For years, I'd poured my heart into helping others, but now it was time to heal myself. I started small, gardening in the backyard, volunteering at the local library, rediscovering the woman I was beyond, mom or nurse. It wasn't easy, but each day felt like a step toward peace. Owen, bless him, was thriving. He took the $350,000 I'd given him and opened a woodworking shop in town, crafting custom furniture that turned heads. His tables and chairs, carved with care, started showing up in local cafes and homes. Soon, he was entering craft fairs, his name buzzing in Columbus's art scene. One evening, as I watched him sand a walnut table in his workshop, pride swelled in my chest. "You're building something real, Owen," I said, my voice thick. He grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Learned from you, Mom. Make it mean something." Caleb showed up one afternoon, unannounced, his shoulders slumped, his eyes tired. He looked like a shadow of the confident man he'd been. "Mom, I need to talk," he said, sitting without waiting for an invite. His voice was heavy, broken. "Ruth's killing me. Nothing's ever enough. New clothes, new trips. I got a second job, but it's not enough." I listened, my heart torn between pity and the scars he'd left. "Caleb, I warned you," I said, my tone firm but not cruel. "Her expectations were always going to break you." He rubbed his face, desperation in his eyes. "I know you did, but I thought I could handle it. I need more from the inheritance, Mom. When you're gone, it'll be mine anyway, right?" His words hit like a slap, reigniting old wounds. I stood, my voice cold. "Get out, Caleb." You chose this path. Don't come back. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. The door closed behind him, the sound final. Owen, who'd overheard from upstairs, came down and hugged me. You okay, Mom? I nodded, leaning into him. I am now, thanks to you. Let's focus on the good we've got. Life settled into a gentle rhythm after that. Owen brought home Sharon, a high school teacher with a warm smile and a heart that felt like home. She was everything Ruth wasn't: kind, grounded, happy with a simple life. Their backyard wedding was small but perfect, with fairy lights strung through the trees and homemade pies from neighbors. During the reception, Owen pulled me aside, his eyes shining. I learned from you, Mom. Choose someone who lifts you up. I hugged him, tears blurring my vision. You picked a good one, son. A few months later, over tea in their cozy new house, a modest place they bought with the sale of Owen's rental property and their savings, Sharon shared big news. Evelyn, we're expecting twins. Her voice was bright, her hand resting on her belly. I nearly dropped my cup, joy flooding me. Twins? Oh, Sharon, that's incredible. Owen beamed, his arm around her. We wanted you to be the first to know, Mom. The thought of grandchildren, of new life, felt like a gift I didn't know I needed. Caleb's life, I heard through whispers, had unraveled. He and Ruth divorced, and she took nearly everything, leaving him to rebuild in a new city. It hurt to think of him struggling, but his choices had built that path. One evening, as I flipped through old photo albums, Owen sat beside me, noticing a picture of Caleb from happier days. Do you ever hear from him? He asked softly. I shook my head. No. He's chosen his road, and I have to let him walk it. Owen squeezed my shoulder. Maybe one day, Mom. I nodded, not sure I believed it, but grateful for the hope in his voice. With twins on the way and Owen's business growing, life felt full again. The pain of Caleb's betrayal lingered, but it didn't define me. I was a mother, a soon-to-be grandmother, and a woman finding her way forward. In the quiet moments, I'd sit on my porch, watching the Ohio sunset, knowing I'd fought for my peace and won. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through grief, betrayal, and the fight to reclaim my strength. If my story moved you, hit that subscribe button and join us. Every choice we make, every stand we take, shapes the life we build. Keep carving your own path, and I'll meet you at the next chapter.